girls.
Yeah, yeah.
And they used to they used to come down the beach all the time in their bikinis. They used to come to Gilgo and
Yeah.
try to wiggle around and show
So
off their
what
bods.
stopped you from like doing something that you're not supposed
Uh,
to? That's
Basically,
a line.
I'll tell you what stopped me: fear of going to jail and fear of losing my job.
Yeah.
Now in a better, less crazy world,
Mhm.
where they didn't have those rules about ages of consent and things like that. I probably would have happily jumped on some of their
Yeah,
bones.
that's what I mean. So fear stopped you. So then people who
Absolutely.
do it
Well, yeah, but
don't
yes,
have that
because
fear.
again, it's about self-discipline.
Yeah.
And now I could even argue, and this is another thing, with the show Sex Education, a lot of these kids were like what we would call underage. They weren't 18, I don't believe. Okay. Now in England, the age of consent or legal age is they're at 16.
Hmm.
Okay. So they can vote at 16, they can do certain things at 16, not 18.
Yeah.
Now here in this country, we have a sliding scale of ages. At certain ages, you can
But
do
I think we
certain
have
things.
ageism here.
Well, yeah, to a degree. I mean, you can't get a drink at 20 until you're 21.
Yeah,
You
and
can,
to me that makes no sense. So you can dive in
well,
your
well,
country
yeah,
at 18, but you can't have a drink. That
well,
like
yeah,
that's
and yeah, you can go to the army, get into the army at 18, get shot, killed,
not
whatever.
killed, but you can't have a drink.
Yeah, exactly right.
That's
So a
stupid.
lot of
Like
them are
that makes
screwed.
no
Now,
sense.
here's the other thing.
Hmm.
There used to be no child labor laws way back when, okay, in the early, I guess it was the 20s, 1920s or so, or before that.
Hmm.
And you had kids working in coal mines and things like that. They were like 12, 13, 14.
Hmm.
And it's especially, and the girls, a girl was considered nubile, which is a fancy word for at the a marriageable age, and that was after their first menstruation,
Yeah,
which
and
might have
that's
been
pretty young,
12,
right?
13, 14.
Yeah.
They still have child brides down south.
They do. Yeah, I saw a whole documentary
I mean,
about
I
that.
guess they have them up here too, but they're quiet about them. But I mean, my point of it all is this: these age laws, they are kind of whimsical. They're kind of arbitrary.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
I understand why we have them, and I don't disagree. Okay. But I could also argue, hey, look, I was in my 20s. I was in my mid 20s. How many mistakes did I make with women? Okay. How I thought I was mature and I wasn't.
Mhm.
How many girls felt the same way? They thought they were mature and they weren't.
Mhm.
It wasn't until they got into their 30s even that they
Mhm.
started to say, oh my God, now I saw now I'm starting to realize what the world's all about.
Yeah, or 40s like me.
Yeah, because maturity, I've said it, maturity is not about age. It's
Yeah,
just not about age. Okay. And
experience.
you know,
I think it's
but
experience, living
but
life.
but again, going back to the sex education TV show,
Mhm.
I thought that the talk about maturity, the conversations they were having with each other
Mhm.
and about each other, and the
Yeah,
relationships you were seeing in the show were extremely mature.
yeah,
They were the kinds of conversations young people should be having.
yeah.
Okay, and it helps them find out who they are and maybe make fewer mistakes going forward.
Yeah, and I like that he turned into a therapist and was helping everybody because young kids really don't know where to turn for this advice. They'll
Yeah,
usually just talk to their friends, maybe if they talk to their friends, or they'll go to the internet, right?
sure. Hey,
Yeah.
I talked about this stuff in class, and that's why I had people. I used to have students waiting for me outside of the class after the class. I'm sorry. They would do it. Can I talk to you later on? Yeah, sure.
Dear Schiavo.
Yeah, no, really, because I would say stuff. They go, wow. They couldn't have those kind of conversations with their own
Yeah.
parents.
Mhm.
I couldn't have them.
No.
I couldn't have them. I mean, first of all, my mother was so judgmental. There's no way.
Yeah.
Okay. My father more so. But he had I love him. I miss him every day. Um, he, um, he had a very, very practical view of it.
Mhm.
I mean, he'd say, look, he said, I know that you find girls attractive and they find you attractive.
Yeah.
And he just told me to be careful and use protection, and he was just not, it
Mhm.
was,
Yeah.
And he used to come down the beach and see like some of the girls who I was
He was
going.
living vicariously through
Well,
you.
he said that. In fact, every time I got married twice, and both times he said to me, "You're killing me. You're killing me." He said, "I live my life vicariously through you. I see these hot steaming babes that are all over you, and you're all over them." He goes, "Are you kidding me? You want to get married? Look
Yeah,
at me. Look at my marriage. You
yeah,
know."
yeah.
And and of course, because as always, that when people get married, no matter how happy they claim to be, the bloom goes off the rose in terms of sex.
Mhm,
You know,
mhm.
because uh, sometimes you may want to climb the same mountain 2 or 3 times, but maybe not 60 times. You know what I mean? I used to say to students in my class, I said, "Oh, I'm going to marry my boyfriend." I said, "You're 17 freaking years old, and you're going to be, and people live longer than ever before. So suppose you live to 80. Okay, how many years is that going to be? That's going to be 63 years. You want to be sleeping with the same person for 63 freaking years? I mean, and you're not going to get bored? You know, come
Mhm.
on."
Yeah.
I used to tell them the only reason that uh, the admiral wasn't bored with me is I think I may have mentioned this in another podcast. I
Mhm.
said is because I put a trapeze up in the ceiling of the bedroom, and then I would go in and
What?
I'd go into the bedroom and
Is this for real?
when I was looking for love, and I would be wearing a big chicken suit, and then I'd be swinging on the trapeze back and forth in my chicken suit, going pluck me, pluck me. Okay, see how you're laughing? They would laugh. I would say this in class now,
Yeah, yeah.
and I said that's how we keep from being bored, in our relationship. Now
Yeah, but
that's
you didn't really do that.
of course not. It was a joke. It
Yeah,
was a
yeah, yeah.
joke. But I was trying to make them understand
Mhm.
that, there's a lot of reasons why people, especially men, I can't say especially men because women are as bad as the men, have affairs. They're bored. They're bored. They're
Yeah.
bored.
It's boredom. Yeah, that is very true because your conversations with you and conversations that you had in class were humorous and they're
Yeah.
funny. And so that would like snap us out of the mundane of classes that were
But wait, but Linda, they were humorous
yeah.
with a point. There was a moral to those
Yeah,
stories.
there was a moral to it. It was intellectual. It was the truth. You had a lesson with it.
Yeah, and the whole idea was that I was trying to get them. You have to look, in those days. It's not so bad now, by the way. I was just reading an article about it recently. For example, pregnancy with teenage pregnancy has really been greatly reduced over the past number of years. And
Mhm.
I was concerned about teenage pregnancies because it could ruin their lives.
Yeah,
Ruin the progress of their lives.
yeah,
And I remember how, with my family, it was like my mother's worst nightmare that I would knock somebody else, have to get married and not get my education,
yeah, yeah.
which is why she went totally off a rocker.
But then there was like birth control and condoms.
But see, that's another thing. There was no birth when I first started. There was no birth control.
Oh, okay.
There wasn't a pill. There was
What
condoms,
was there? There was
condoms,
condom, right?
but no, yeah, no birth control.
Hmm.
And then lots of other stuff. So what I was saying is my job is to try to say, hey, look, you've got to be. It's a especially in your teens, this urge to have sex is humongous,
Hmm.
humongous, and it's not unnatural. You're not
Hmm.
a pervert for saying, I want to get laid or I want to masturbate. No, no. But your job has got to be to develop some self-discipline so that you don't screw up your life and the life of this other person that you allegedly love. Okay. So and I used to really resent it when people who taught seniors said, well, I never talk about sex in my senior class. Well, excuse me, you're doing literature that has a lot of sex in it. It
Yeah,
wasn't necessarily always very graphic. I
yeah.
said, but like, and I was doing world literature. I couldn't avoid having conversations about sex. I mean, you're doing Madame Bovary, you're doing Anna Karenina, you have talking about women who are in adulterous relationships. Okay, you're talking about the ancient Greeks. Ancient Greeks, they were screwing everybody, men, women, you know,
Well, yeah,
animals.
everything has sex in it, all those topics, right? So you have to
That's what
talk
I'm
about
saying. So to deny that sexuality is a real issue is ridiculous. And
it.
I
Yeah.
just again going back to the show Sex Education, they deal with the realities. especially of the modern age, when all of a sudden now you've got a panoply of possibilities. I mean,
Mhm.
this whole thing with transsexuality is another issue.
Mhm.
And people say, well, it's not natural. Well, yes and no. Okay, it's natural in nature. There are certain species of animals and
Fish.
fish, yeah, that change sex. For example, my
Mhm.
personal favorite
Yeah.
is black sea bass. Start off as females, end up as males. Oh, I forget now which one it is now. All I know is they start off as one sex,
Yeah.
then they end up as another one. Okay, and
Yeah.
they're not the only creatures that do that.
Yeah. That's
Now,
I mean, I
the,
saw that on a documentary, and that
yeah,
was so fascinating to me.
yeah, and also there's something known as parthenogenesis, which means that a female of a species, if there are no males around, can actually give birth without the male. How
What?
about that? Yeah.
That's a fish?
No, well, not to fish, but there are certain animals that can do it. I think fish and reptiles
So they
certainly.
like self-propagate.
Remember, here's the word parthenogenesis. You can look it up. I mean, if you
Okay.
think, and again, whenever you or anybody who watches these podcasts feels that I'm making this stuff up, hey, look it up,
No,
Google it.
I know you're not making up. I
Encyclopedia,
just
right?
I just Google in the wild, black sea bass are born females and turn
That's
into
it. Female
males at their
only go to
around the
male.
age of 2 to 5 years old.
They change sex
They change from female to male.
at 2 to 5 years old.
Yeah.
Okay, right. And they're not the only ones who do that. So, so at any rate, what I'm saying to you is now the difference though is that for transsexuals, they have these doing operations. Okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
But now, of course, I used to, you talk about the level of homosexuality in sex education, that show, I used to talk about hermaphrodites. Why? Because I had boys who said, "Oh, well, homosexuals, they're all screwed up," and I would punch them in the mouth if they came near me. I said, "Whoa." So, and I would have to explain the notion of hermaphrodites. If nature creates both sexes in one human being, okay, then obviously, people can be born, men can be born more female than
Yeah.
male,
Yeah.
vice versa.
Yeah.
Okay, and then they may, like, males, they may look male, but they really have the uh, biochemistry and or the mentality of being female,
Yeah.
and vice versa. I
Mhm.
said that is not. If, see here, what I used to always resent when people say, "Well, something is unnatural,"
Mhm.
like homosexuality. Well, excuse me, if it happens in nature, it's natural.
Yeah.
Right? That's your definition. If it happens in nature, it's not. Now, it may be percentage wise rarer,
Yeah.
but it's not unnatural. Okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
And and it's hard for people to get that into their heads.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. And so it's my job to, talk about these things and get your point of view and wit and wisdom and to spread the knowledge.
Well, I've always tried to do that.
Yeah, and I'm just making it immortalized on YouTube
Yeah.
so it can live
But
on forever.
your old
Yep.
friend there.
Yeah.
You can see how her life was, um, basically, it, she was indoctrinated to believe in certain things being odd or sinful,
Mhm.
or I don't know, perverted or whatever. Okay.
But the
uh
thing is that she is very open-minded for an older person that I
well
was really happily,
yeah, I mean, I think what you were really saying is she just found it startling that I
Yeah.
was
Yeah, like
that.
she wasn't closed-minded of hearing it.
Right.
She was more like fascinated that,
So
"Oh, wow, like he's
um,
openly talking about it. That's, interesting. Let me
it's
hear more of, this Schiavo person that you talk about."
it's shocking about the conversations I've had with people and
Yeah.
young people over the years. That was so, you want to talk about, oh, you had to be really open-minded to have the conversation.
Mhm, mhm.
But
Yeah, so
anyway, I
she
think,
so she was really interested. So if
yeah.
she has a smart TV soon, she'll probably listen to all the conversations. I told her I have, like,
Well, look, I think
31 of them so far, I think.
it's funny. I have to go back over some of them because I've forgotten what I've said. Oh,
Yeah, I know. You haven't done your homework that I gave
well,
you.
it is. I was so busy fishing this summer and everything else.
I know
but
you're out gallivanting.
I know, I'm gonna have to go through some of them, but I think
Well,
that
I need you to watch them and then write a little reaction.
it's yeah, but that's so
No,
hard for me to do
why?
because like I just said, because writing is a solitary pursuit and it's taking my time away from masturbation. I can't do that.
You have like
Now
24
you
hours.
see, I said that, and I said that, and I thought that was going to make you laugh, and you didn't laugh.
It's because I hear it all the time from you, so I'm used to used to it. That's just an excuse that you don't want to do it. So I'm just ignoring it.
Well, hey, look, no, yeah, I mean, sometimes I have to say, lots of times I don't like if I'm too fidgety. I don't like that, and if I've said something that like every once in a while, I've made a mistake where I go, I really
Well,
can't.
why can't you watch it and make your comments on the comment section and say like, "Oh, I
You
made a
know,
mistake here.
yeah, I
I
remember
was a little
doing
too
stuff.
fidgety."
I think I mentioned a philosopher's name and it was the wrong philosopher. It was I
Yeah,
forget
so
which one.
like, why can't you fix it? Because then now we know.
Well, okay, you see, all right, now you're giving me homework. I'm supposed to give you homework, not the other way around.
No, in this day and age, I'm 47 now, so I can give you homework because it's my podcast.
I guess you're right, and I guess you're right. That's okay. That's all right.
No, because like, you remember you did your blogs before, and so if
Right.
you write your comments, that would be your blog entry.
Yeah,
You-
and I stopped doing the blogs when I started doing these podcasts, and again, it's much more fun than
Mhm.
having to sit down there and write stuff.
Yeah, because then it's just you're doing it solitary, which is, then you get bored of writing,
Yeah, well,
right?
sure.
Yeah.
Exactly right. So I think that, yeah, but at any rate, I think you can spread the word about that show, Sex Education.
Yep.
I think the other thing, though, I might mention too, people when they were watching it, they wanted to know if Maeve and Otis were going to finally become like get married and
Yeah.
be a permanent item. And I thought what was great about it was that no, they don't. In other words, she goes off to America to pursue her writing career and things like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And he's all inconsolable about it. And
Hmm.
his mother says, "Hey, look, you know what? Deal with it. She's gone."
Hmm.
But she said, "Hey, look." But she writes him this letter. She goes, "Oh, you changed my life, and you opened me all up." And it was a bit. And I think what I liked about that was, when I think of my relationships in life, that that's the way. I think sometimes that's the way it should be.
Why?
So, for example,
Why?
well, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you why. My wife married her high school boyfriend, and it was a disaster.
Hmm.
Okay, it was a disaster. He was just a schnook. He was, and they had two kids. He abandoned them. I mean, it was horrible.
Yeah.
And I often wondered, gee, as much as I had a hot, steaming, wall banging, continual sex 2 to 4 times a day with Betty Lou. Okay,
Mhm.
like a couple of years we were together. Um, I often wondered what would have happened had we gotten married. And when I thought about it, I said, "Oh my God, it would have ended in catastrophe."
Mm.
And
I think it
philosophers,
would have ended in like cheating and
well, yeah, I think that yep, that would be that. I would probably was concerned about that. I also think that one of the reasons why I've kind of felt, hey, it's time for this to end, is that my head was going in a different place as
yeah.
opposed to okay. So for example, I definitely wanted and needed to get educated, more educated. And she was very bright, but she chose not to go to college. Okay. And she never had the urge really. And she, as far as I know, I get all my information second and third hand. She never did.
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
So, and that sometimes can be very, very difficult. So I just think that certain relationships are really great in one's youth, and they kind of help form
Hmm.
your perceptions of the world, and but
Yeah.
you
Your
also help. They also,
exploration and
yeah,
discovery.
they also help you define who you are and whatever.
Yeah.
But once you start to realize that you get to a certain age, as they both did, may have noticed, as they
Mhm.
got older, that they were in fact going in different directions. She more than he.
Yeah. Yeah, she wanted more.
Right. And he was very happy to hang out where he was with his
Yeah.
friends and, and but she said, you know what? She goes off to America and she's doing her thing and
Yeah.
So
So
and I think,
what's your next like show recommendation for me?
you know, I'd have to think about that
Okay.
because a lot of the stuff that I'd like to watch, I don't know that I like Westerns and right now I'm watching Lawman about Sam Bass. Sam Bass was one of the first black federal marshals who was a deputy, and it was a true story. And
On Netflix?
no, it's on right now. It's on Paramount Plus.
Oh, I don't have that. So I need shows. The only things that I have are Netflix,
Yeah,
Hulu.
I
Um,
like Hulu. I get all my cartoon shows on Hulu.
okay. So if you have any recommendations on those two platforms,
I probably do, but I have to think
think
about that.
about it.
I
Okay.
want I want comedy. I
Yeah.
watch a lot of animated shows. I'm a
Yeah.
big fan of Bob's Burgers,
Oh, okay.
and
Okay.
that's a really fun show. And intelligent in its way, and lots of stuff. I like
Yeah.
I'm a Family Guy, and
Mhm.
The Simpsons. I have in all the 30 some odd years, I have never missed an episode of The Simpsons.
Of The Simpsons.
Every I love this thing. One of the
Yeah.
smartest shows on TV ever,
Hmm.
ever, and funny,
Hmm.
continuously funny.
Yeah.
So, my wife goes crazy because she's you're watching The Simpsons again. you know what's up with that?
Well, that's funny. That's something I didn't know about you. So I learned something new
Oh
about you
no,
today.
I've always loved animated shows, and then now, and of course on Netflix. I mean, there's a lot of dirty ones there. I know, like I think it was Big Mouth was one of them,
Yeah.
and there's a few that they use a lot of sex and there's a lot of filth in some of those, and I don't even like to say filth. Uh, to
Well, you
me,
can't say filth since we're just talking about sex
no,
education.
no, 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 yeah, because you know what, funny is funny.
Yeah.
One of the things they've always had a problem with, I never liked it when women were called names because they were sexual. So they
Mhm.
said, well, so and so is a slut. Well, excuse me, time out.
Yeah.
What you're saying to me is she's just like you, you're looking to bag every girl in sight
Yeah.
because you enjoy
Yeah.
sex.
Why the double standard?
Exactly right. This is another thing I think that maybe students picked up on me with girls who were sexually active. Hey, that's not a problem. I'm
But
not
they
calling
like
names.
I don't understand the double standard because like so you don't want your girl to have all this, experience and be with all these other guys, but then you want a sex pot in bed who's amazing and knows how to do everything.
Well, I used to
But
say,
where do you think she's learning all of this? She's got
I
to learn
used
it somehow.
I don't know if you remember this. I used to say this every once in a while. So, oh yeah, this is yours. That's great. You're gonna get married. You're both gonna be virgins. And
Mhm.
what I can just imagine the both of you poking around at night trying to figure it out on the first couple of nights after you're married. Okay.
Yeah.
I said the fact of the matter is that I would hope that one of you is not a virgin
Hmm.
to help the other one out. Okay,
Yeah.
that's number one.
Yeah.
And I said, and if guys, if you're lucky, your wife will not be a virgin, which would horrify a lot
Yeah.
of boys. Oh my God, who? Because
Yeah,
what
but
they
then
don't want.
but then if she's amazing in bed, then you're gonna
Yeah,
enjoy
but you
it.
know what the problem is? The guys are insecure. Well, gee, will I stack up to the boys and men that she slept with already? I mean, that's one of their biggest problems as a young male.
Do you think men are more insecure than women?
Oh, absolutely,
Hmm.
absolutely. I mean, I mean, look, obviously it's not for everybody, but I mean, still in all that I felt there were more males who were insecure than there were females.
Hmm.
This is also relative to the fact that most people would agree that girls mature faster
Faster,
than
faster. Yeah.
boys.
Yeah.
Okay, if they mature fast,
Yeah.
and I guess that's Mother Nature saying, you know what, they have to because if they're going to become mothers, somebody has to have some maturity.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, if they're getting their period at 12, they literally could get pregnant and they have to take care of another human being.
Well, this is it. You see, this is it. And and so I've always been I really can't say I've been sexist, really. You know what I mean? I've always felt that I want. Look, I think who helped me a lot of that was Betty Blue. Betty Lou
Betty Lou,
loves.
I need to get Betty Lou on here.
Oh, please, please. God does what you tell you. I'm sure that Betty Lou had so
Can we
many.
get Betty Lou? I would love to get Betty
I'm
Lou.
going to tell you this though. Here's what I think. I think that Betty Lou, I'd be as much as as much as we spent a couple of years together and just having wild amounts of sex. Okay,
Yeah.
she probably doesn't even remember me because she probably had so many more men in her
I
life. I
really
think.
need Betty Lou on here because we've had so many conversations in classroom where all your students have heard her name, and I don't think we have a face to that name.
And you're not going to either.
So on your grave, then we're gonna have it. You know, we're gonna be like,
But you,
"Who's Betty Lou?" I'm gonna put a
but
sign
you
up.
have okay, but you have to also understand that a lot of the stories I told that I claimed were with Betty Lou.
Would be somebody else too.
Yeah, because I not that, and I pretty much did everything with Betty Lou, but I mean, but
Oh,
my point was that there were certain kinds of incidents that, again, there was a moral to the story I was telling about the sexual, whatever the relationship was,
yeah.
and so that sometimes Betty Lou became a composite of different
Of
women in my life. You
of
know what I mean?
all the women you've been with.
Yeah, yeah. And I
I
think
mean,
that
what I love is that a playboy like you gets married, and then is faithful. I mean, that's a great story on its own.
well, yeah, because again, I think that this is another thing, too many men uh got married too early
Mhm.
and they were insecure, or they weren't as lucky as I was that women found them attractive and vice versa.
Yeah.
And so they were trying to sometimes I think they feel that they're missing out.
Yeah.
And I felt when I met my wife that I was no longer
Missing
missing.
out. That's great. That's a good
And
lesson.
also, and look, it's like with
That's
what they, yeah, but it's like they say to women that women have to kiss a lot of frogs before they meet their handsome prince.
yeah.
It's true for men. I think that you say, well, okay, there's all kinds of great sex and varied sex and blah 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 blah. But then there's also, if you're going to look about a long-term relationship, yeah, you want there to be good sex and stuff, but you also want there to be other values
Yeah.
you can hang your hat on and make have a committed marriage with.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one of the lessons that I learned with these conversations I had you that I passed on to my kids of values. So I'm like, all right, kids, what are values? So I literally say this to them, like, listen, make sure when you choose someone, they have the similar values. Now, what are values? Same like, you want to have kids, religion, or where you want to live. Like, these are important things that you need to
But
have
also
conversation.
about also things that are about good and evil, things about the moral and ethical choices you make in life. Now, for example, this is going to take us into another realm for another podcast, but um, look at all the problems now all of a sudden with anti-Semitism
Hmm.
and racism and stuff.
Yeah.
Here's what every scientist worthy of the sociologist worthy of that, and most teachers will tell you. Children learn anti-Semitism and racism at their mother's knee, at their father's knee. In other words, they're
Yeah.
getting that from their parents.
Yeah.
Okay. Kids, they've talked about if you look at young kids in the playground, 3, 4, 5 years old, there are black kids and there are brown kids and there are yellow kids and there are white kids.
Yeah.
And they're not having a problem with race.
Yeah.
This is just my friend Joey. This is my friend, Leroy, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay? And so the racism, they start picking up negativity about races and about religions from parents
Yeah.
and their parents' friends
Hmm.
or from other adults.
Yeah.
Now, for example, I remember there were teachers in our building. They were racist and they were anti-Semites, and I knew who they were.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
would never, like, for example, I would never think I told you, I would never tell my students what I thought about certain teachers that they had
Hmm.
because I just first of all, I felt tired, really unprofessional, number one. And those students needed to make their own decisions about that person.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And sometimes, like the coaches who were racist, you know, they came off really great with their athletes,
Hmm.
and yet I knew that they didn't necessarily like their particular race. Okay,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
but you know what? They did the right thing.
Yeah.
They taught the skills and they
Yeah.
got the
Yeah.
teams to win. And it's kind of it's a strange deal where you have this antipathy, or somebody has this antipathy And I mean, I can't imagine doing the job I did if I didn't like my students. If I didn't like
What does antipathy mean?
the negativity, like not
Oh,
antipathy means anti against feeling.
against.
Yeah.
Okay.
In other words,
Yeah.
if I had negative feelings about a student's race or color or religion,
And like this, like my friends who had teachers like that, like they feel it. Like, how do it's hard to be able to be in those classes where your teacher is a racist and doesn't like you, and just
yeah, I'd love to know some of those stories, really,
hmm
But again, I think that I'm looking around, I'm thinking, well, sure, all this things about anti-Semitism now. I'm sorry, you, they, they got that. They got that from home. You know, they. I think my wife's is my wife outside doing something.
you
Oh yeah,
see.
she took the dogs out. Okay, I'm looking at my security cameras. So I
Yeah.
just think that really this whole thing about the is again is racism and anti-Semitism is about poor education and values. You see, going back to values
I like yes.
from the home in the home. My
Mhm.
parents, you know what? I found out later on. My mother
Yeah.
had some negativity about certain things, but not growing up. Never a nasty word about
Yeah.
anybody's religion or
Yeah.
anybody's race ever. Neither my father nor my mother
hmm
ever let on to my
Yeah.
sister or me any negativity about other kinds of
Other
people.
racism. Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't until I got much older,
hmm
my 20s, that I started to hear stuff with my mother that I went, oh, she doesn't like that kind of person. It's just like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, she was much more judgmental.
hmm
So, but she did the right thing for us growing up. So that's my point. My point is that the values were all people are people, do unto others. It's not about color. It's not
hmm
about different religion. It's
hmm
about, are they good people? How do they treat you?
Yeah.
You treat them as the way you want to be treated.
Mhm.
It's karma. They'll probably treat you the way you've been treating them. And
Yeah, yeah, and karma was a thing that me and Jerry had talked about too. So we've had interesting conversations, and
I I guess on that note, we probably should stop. But
yeah, yeah.
I
So
could look. I could talk to you all day. I'm here. I'm
I
relaxed.
know it's just so fun to chat with me.
We talk about everything. But anyway, so
I know.
I'm
Yeah,
glad I put you onto a show that you like, Sex Education. I
yeah,
think I think everybody should watch it. I also think it's a startling. It's startling. It's really good and it's funny, but it's also startling to a lot of people who are uptight and rigid and
mhm,
had really bad, perverted upbringing about sexuality and stuff.
yeah, yeah,
It could be a real life changer.
yeah. I told my because I have it on my Netflix, and my kids have my Netflix. So I think I mentioned it to them. I'm like, sex education is good, but don't watch it right now. Watch it later, maybe. Because there's a lot of scenes in there that I was like, that would be jarring to them. So I'm like, well, maybe watch it just a little bit.
Well, look, I think that's another thing. I think that kids, it's funny. Like I read a lot of stuff,
Mhm.
and I read a lot of stuff that was certainly more sophisticated than my age. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
But I was able to understand all that stuff,
yeah.
and I learned an awful lot. Okay,
Mhm.
that I probably learned sooner than most people would think a young person should
Oh, yeah.
learn.
Like
See,
what
well,
age do you think that was that you were
well,
reading
I'm saying, I mean, I was reading
super
stuff. I
inappropriate
was
things?
an avid reader of fairly well. For example, I read I started reading the dialogues of Plato when I was in the 10th grade. Okay,
Oh, okay, okay.
something like that, right?
So
So
10th grade
and
is
I read a lot of I read books that were kind of like I knew all the words for all the different sexual stuff. Okay, because I used to look them up.
yeah. At what? At 10th grade?
Ninth grade,
Oh,
I
no.
guess. I mean, I was in high school, maybe even junior high. I forget. I mean,
Yeah,
it just became second nature to me.
yeah,
So
because
I
yeah,
would
like
know.
my kids are, so you think my kids are able to watch sex education now?
I also think though, Linda, then it's kind of incumbent upon you that you have to have these conversations about what they've
Yeah,
seen.
yeah.
I mean, there are certain sexual techniques I mentioned, like when the guy gets a rim job from this one girl. Okay,
Mhm, mhm.
I mean that's something that's like, whoa, wait a second, you know. uh, something like that.
Yeah.
Talking
They're gonna
about
be like, well, what does that mean?
yeah, well, yeah, that's what I'm saying, and so
Yeah. I have to be ready for the conversations.
yeah, and again, I don't believe in like saying, well, the kids can only learn certain things when they get to a certain age.
Yeah.
I don't believe that. I think that a lot of it has to do with
If
the
they're ready.
yeah, if
If
the
they're ready.
individual kid is mature enough or
Yeah.
knowledgeable enough or
Yeah. Yeah.
sensitive enough to appreciate certain things, that's
Yeah,
fine.
like we'll watch shows that are very mature, and so my son will ask me questions more than my daughter, I think, and I'll explain it to them. I'll tell them the real story of
Yeah,
whatever.
and by the way, here's a sick part of our society.
Mhm.
We are more parents and adults are more willing to let their kids watch horribly violent, vicious, gory stuff
Mhm.
than they are about letting them watch sexy stuff.
Yeah, yeah, or
Okay?
even those violent games too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I don't make a big deal about the violent games. I guess that's another story. I never was into that, but what I'm saying to you is that if I'm going to have my kids watch anything, I'd rather them watch sexy stuff about sex and stuff about shooting people, slitting people's throats, violence,
Yeah,
gore, things like
yeah,
that. You see what I
yeah.
mean?
Mhm.
I mean, sex is a much more, it's
Natural is as
more
opposed to
natural,
killing.
more understandable, and it's also a lot more fun.
Yeah, I totally agree. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining me here today, and until the next shirt, Schiavo.
Yes, always a pleasure. Gee, now this is bluish.
I know it's pretty. It's
I
nice.
don't look bluish, do I? That was a joke. That was a joke in the Beatles movie, by the way.
Oh,
That's another story. All right. Always fun. You stay well.
okay.
Stay out
Okay.
of trouble. Keep in touch, hon. Okay.
All right. Talk to you later. Bye.
Okay, babe. Bye now.